Hello everybody, it's Earthshatter time yet again. Now, if you're looking for all of the info you could possibly want, check the link in the description below for the Mobalytics page where I've written up absolutely everything pertaining to Earthshatter. Again, everything you could possibly want to know, including how to level the build. This is an entirely separate, dedicated leveling build. All of that stuff is on the Mobalytics page in the description below. And be sure to watch this video here if you want an entire breakdown of what Earthshatter is in general. I'm not going to do that in this video because I've already done that here. Instead, what I'm going to talk about is a big thing, which is why choose the Juggernaut over the Berserker. And the answer, well, is right here. With Jugg, you get about 50% less damage, so you get double damage on Berserker, but you are about 25% tankier, which is close to 50% tankier against physical damage, and then you have massive quality of life with Unstoppable. Basically, you can't be stunned, and your action speed cannot be slowed. So temp chains, chilled ground, the stupid little drowning orbs from the Eater that just start eating you alive, and none of those things matter to the Juggernaut, which is very important if you're trying to push hard content in T17s, and especially the Uber Pinnacle bosses. So check the Mobalytics in the description below. Other than that, let's dive into Path of Building here, where I break things down a little more. Now, I have two POBs pulled up here. The first is Juggernaut, the second is Berserker. Now, everything about these POBs is identical except for the class that I'm choosing to play and a few passive points here and there. All of the skills, all of the items, the config tab, all of this stuff is identical. This is also in a league start scenario. We're level 77 currently with a 640 DPS weapon. This is basically just right at the start of the league as soon as you get to the maps. So on the Juggernaut, we're looking at about 1.1 million DPS, but that's not your full DPS because we're playing Earthshatter. You have to count the spikes as well. On average, you're hitting about 2 spikes on every enemy. If it's a larger enemy, maybe 3 up to 4 at the maximum. I don't think you're ever hitting all 6 spikes on an enemy, unless it's like a perfect scenario where the enemy is massive and you're like perfectly in the center of them. Maybe you're hitting all 6 spikes. Anyway, I like to consider the damage based on 2 spikes. So you do double this, so 1.6 million plus the hit damage, which is 1.1 million. We'll just call it like 2.7 million DPS on the Juggernaut. However, on the Berserker, we're sitting at 2.4 million from the hit alone. Each spikes are additional 1.7. We'll round it up. So that's 3.4 plus 2.4. So easily over 5 million DPS, probably closer to 6. That is obviously the major difference between the two classes. And again, this is right at a league start scenario, level 75, actually a couple levels lower than the Juggernaut here, using a 640 DPS weapon. But this does not paint the full picture. And this is the part that I really want to drive home. If you are a newer player, I highly recommend that you go with the Juggernaut over the Berserker. Reason being is you look right here. So effective hit pool, this is basically a meme stat in Path of Building. You can manipulate this in a ton of different ways. I don't take the stat seriously whatsoever. What I like to look at are your max hit values and then your total recovery down here. So for the max hits on the Berserker, we're looking at about 12.8 for physical, 35,000 for elemental, and about 25,000 for chaos. Go back to the Juggernaut. We're looking at 20,000 physical, 45 elemental, and about 30 chaos. That is a major difference. Also, you have this little thing on the Berserker called Rite of Ruin. You lose 0.1% of your life per rage per second. Sitting at 47 rage, that is 4.7% of your life per second that you are draining. So you offset this, number one, with the Hardy cluster. You get 0.6 region, 0.6 region, 1.5, and then 15% increased rate, which is just a separate multiplier. So this is a very good cluster. If you see here, total degen goes from +4, measly 0.4, down to negative 233 life per second. So definitely take the Hardy cluster if you're playing Berserker. The star of the show, again, are the max hit values. Juggernaut has about, 80% higher phys max in a league start scenario and, roughly 15-20% higher on the elemental side of things. I'm telling you right now, if you're new to Path of Exile in general, but especially just new to slams, I strongly suggest that you consider playing the Juggernaut over the Berserker. This is still plenty of damage. Believe me, you're going to fly through maps all the way up to T16, no problem. This is, again, a 640 DPS weapon. You can get a much better weapon very easily. You're still looking at close to 3 million DPS on the Juggernaut. That is more than enough. But what happens when you get to a high investment point, when you get to the Giga endgame, we'll call it? Well, I have another Path of Building here. This is actually I'm Exile's Berserker Earthshatter Slam POB. And you can see here that his DPS is about 6.6 on the hit, and then the spikes are an additional 4.6, so we'll just round up. We'll call it about 15 million DPS. That's a lot. Now, I think he has his items based on solo self-found mode where you can't trade other players to acquire stuff, which is why you only see the Echoes of Creation unique item here. There are definitely some better choices here for the other pieces of gear. We'll talk about those in 1 second. But the Echoes of Creation is a gargantuan item to get. You see, if we take it off, it's looking at about 70% more damage from that item alone, but you also have a massive downside of taking a percentage of your life as physical damage every single time you attack. And on the Berserker, the best way to do this is to use this combination right here. Corrupted Soul, which is from the Glorious Vanity Timeless Jewel, conquered by Doriani, which basically just says you get a bunch of energy shield for free. See right here is about 1.1k ES at about 6.8k life, but then you take Corrupted Soul in combination with Divine Shield, which now that you have a bunch of energy shield, a portion of it is constantly regenerated based on the physical damage that you prevent. The wording here is exactly the same as Juggernaut's node Untiring. This is popular on like Bone Shatter or Trauma builds. Basically, the more damage that you take over a duration, the more regen you're going to have on the Juggernaut's case for your life, but in Divine Shield case for your energy shield. So you get a bunch of energy shield via Corrupted Soul, and then you regen it with Divine Shield, and that heavily offsets the downside of Echoes of Creation. It doesn't remove it entirely, but it basically makes it negligible. And you can see here, looking over at the max hit values, this is Endgame Berserker, level 97, like giga investment on everything else. You're looking at about 22k Fizz max, about 60k Elemental, not bad, and then about 31k Chaos. Also, it's important to note that this is with endurance charges up, and the way that you do this on the Berserker is you have to run the Eldritch mod, gain an endurance charge every 11 seconds. I think you can get this at 12 as well, permanent uptime, but 11 makes it way easier. And then you be sure to take this node down here instead of going up here for the strength plus the endurance charge. You take the duration with this endurance charge, and that basically guarantees you always are at max endurance charges. But here is the Juggernaut. You can see here that, we're actually looking like a lot of damage as well. The Berserker at the Giga investment had 6.6 million. This is with a 1000 DPS axe. And this is where these differences in items come into play. Again, I think this POB, Exiles specifically, is for solo self-found. This is something you're going to do on Trade League. Number one, because you're playing the Juggernaut, you don't need that energy shield combo with Divine Shield, Corrupted Soul. Because if you look here, we have a 31k Fizz max, which means the Juggernaut mitigates 80% more physical damage than the Berserker does. AKA, we're taking a lot less damage from Echoes of Creation. That's why we don't need that combo. And Ralakesh's Impatience plus Arn's Anguish is particularly strong because essentially what Arn's Anguish does is it grants you brutal charges instead of endurance charges. And each brutal charge gives you a 3% chance to deal triple damage. But because you are no longer able to generate endurance charges, you need to put in Ralakesh's Impatience because this thing says you are counted as always having maximum endurance charges. Arn's Anguish doesn't completely replace endurance charges with brutal, it simply replaces the generation of them. You're not generating them with Ralakesh, you're just counted as having maximum. You can see here that if I take off Ralakesh Impatience, all of a sudden my max hits go all the way down to the floor. So with the Juggernaut in a Giga investment scenario, we're looking at basically the same DPS. You know, we'll say we'll configure the gear a little bit more in Exiles build with a little more investment. It'll probably be about the same DPS, but you're looking at much higher max hit values. Again, 31k for Fizz, 61k for Elemental, and 35k for Chaos. That is quite a big leap over these values. When you get into the Giga in-game T17 farming Uber Pinnacle bosses, those differences matter a lot. I know what you're thinking. Oh, this is not an accurate comparison. You can do Giga investment on the Berserker as well using the same setup. And yeah, you're right, actually. So this is now back on the Berserker, but now using Ralakesh Impatience, Arn's Anguish, and maintaining the Corrupted Soul and Divine Shield combo. With this setup, we're looking at, yeah, that's a bit more damage. About 11.9 million with the hit and 8 million with the spikes. I mean, that's like easily over, what, 25 million DPS, which is hopefully proof enough now to go back to the original point of why Juggernaut over Berserker. You're dealing about, half as much damage, but you're quite a bit tankier. Even in the highest investment setups, and as I just showed you with all of the Path of Buildings here, that holds true for every single investment point. Berserker deals twice as much damage. Juggernaut is roughly, let's just say 30% tankier. So if you need any proof as to why you should play Earthshatter, Juggernaut, or Berserker, it does not matter. You can even go Slayer if you want, but I really don't see the point of going Slayer personally. If you need even more proof for some reason, literally go watch any other content creators' videos. If they made a tier list or a ranking of league starters, Earthshatter is absolutely in the top, if not the #1 position. It's probably like 2 or 3. If you've never played Slams or Earthshatter in general, but especially Melee before, this is an absolutely perfect time to dive in with some Melee and Path of Exile. Anyway, one last time, check the links in the description below for the Mobalytics if you want a full written up version of the build. Other than that, thank you for watching. Check out my stream, twitch.tv/WoolieGaming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!